Welcome aboard the BESETO Express. We'll cover 3 countries: Beijing in China, Seoul in Korea, and Tokyo in Japan. Together we'll explore the culture of BESETO. All aboard the BESETO Express.
It took millions of years for man to start wearing clothes. Once humans started to hide their nakedness, they invented yarn and fabric, and it has been developed with human history ever since. Korea has 4 very distinct seasons, so the fabrics of Korea are different in material, shape, and color according to different seasons and social status. Japan has the highest rate of precipitation among the 3 BESETO countries, so most of the fabrics of Japan have a warm and soft color combination. Silk is one of China's 4 greatest inventions. To the world of famous Chinese silks, let's meet the delicate beauty of the fabrics of the 3 BESETO countries.
Everyone, my name is Sunmin Kim and welcome to BESETO Express. What do you think of my dress today? Isn't it pretty? It really takes a lot of work in making such a beautiful dress like this. But the basic thing behind it is making the fabric. Materials used in weaving fabric vary from plants to animal fur and even to silkworms. It's amazing how people even thought of making such different fabrics. Well, shall we look at the different characteristics of fabrics among our 3 BESETO countries?
We can say that the most representative fabric of China is silk. Silk, which was spread over the world through the Silk Road, was a very precious and beautiful fabric since long ago. Silk was the symbol of wealth and power in the old days. China had developed the method of extracting silk threads from silkworms 5,000 years ago. And as civilizations developed rapidly during the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century, Chinese silk also flourishes more than ever at this time in history. The Chinese kept the technique of producing silk a secret so well that it was not until hundreds of years later, in 522 AD, that its techniques were finally passed on to the West. In the past, silk was produced all by the hands of man, but now it is manufactured in large numbers through machinery. The Koreans love the color white very much, so most fabrics of Korea have white as their underlying color. The fabric made with care by a mother is also of a natural color close to white. The best fabric for the summer seasons, mochi or hemp cloth, has been the most Korean and precious fabric since long ago. In the days without air conditioners or fans, the remedy to outstand the summer heat of over 30 degrees centigrade was in this mochi fabric. Made of hemp cloth or China grass, the mochi fabric was used to make summer clothes for the nobility because of its coolness. Although it was tedious work, clothes made of mochi had to be stiffly starched all the time for the best look. The Korean mochi is famed for its fine texture. When we think of traditional Japanese fabric, we think of the kimono and we admire its elaborateness. The Japanese kimono, which is the traditional costume, is made of silk, cotton, hemp cloth, and even polyester. but the most representative fabric used for a kimono is silk. It was only about 100 years ago that silk became popular among the common people. Silk had been only for the few nobility and high-class people in the past. Silk is still very expensive that when a silk dress is made, it is passed on from grandmother to daughter.
The Korean people were called people in white. The reason behind this is because the most common dress worn by the common people was white in color. Also, the Chinese and Japanese people called the Korean people this because the color white resembled purity and truthful characteristics of the Korean people. However, the Korean people also did wear clothes with different colors and decorations on special occasions and holidays. And they also employed special significance to their decorations and colors.
Originally, there were no decorative patterns in traditional Japanese fabrics. Only in a couple of provinces, people used brushes to draw vertical and horizontal lines to make geometrical shapes. Then, during the flowering times, as dye was imported from the West, elaborate colors started to appear. And people started to draw in flowers, birds, and landscapes on fabrics. Most colors are opaque and gentle, which reflect the humid and foggy climates of Japan. Because of their dark weather, the Japanese favored fabric with refinement.
確かにシルクの着物っていうのは、何百年も前からずっとありましたけれども、偉い人、いわゆる三角形の頂点の方の人は絹の着物を着られましたけれども、普通のいわゆる一般の人たちが絹の着物を着られるようになったのは120、30年前ぐらいからじゃないか。
In China, no one could wear the clothes the emperor wore. So in most silk fabrics, decorative patterns symbolizing social status was indicated, and there were also distinctions in color according to social class. The color red symbolized prosperity and wealth to the Chinese people, and red was thought of as the most ideal color. Silk, which is the protein fiber extracted from silkworms, not only has a soft texture, but also has a healing effect for skin diseases.
特征呢大了，这丝绸这东西，它这个过去我们用丝绸啊，主要用它这两个方面。一个呢，它外观漂亮，因为过去我们的衣服是用什么做的呢？是用麻做的。那我刚才讲兽皮叶、树叶，后来发展的用麻，后来发现了丝绸也可不得了，丝绸是非常光滑，而且呢有一种非常柔和的这种光泽，摸上去的手感呢非常柔软，非常舒服，这种感觉非常一种高贵的这种感觉。另外呢，丝绸的保温性特别好。
Korea emphasized on the harmony with nature, so the traditional fabrics of Korea are far from being fancy. Decorative patterns were not made very often either, and most were just patterns made by alternating the textures of the cloth when weaving or giving points by adding little pieces of embroidery. High-class people decorated their clothes with gold foil to symbolize status or wealth. The primitive colors, bright blue, yellow, scarlet, and bright green, were very often used for special ceremonial clothes. These colors here are colors of less intensity and brightness. They were also colors that represented the traditional fabrics of Korea.
우리나라는 특히 우리 문양이나 색상이나 다 이런 철학적인 의미가 부여돼 있고 또 어떤 그 상징성을 다 갖고 있습니다. 그래서 그 문양, 우리가 그 일반 사람들이 가장 좋아했던 문양은 그 십장생을 들 수 있는데 그 중에서도 그 운문, 구름무늬, 그 다음에 산수, 또 뭐 파도문 이런 것 등등을 많이 이용을 했고요. 그래서 주로 수복 해가지고 장수를 기원하고 복을 불러들이고 액은 물리친다 그런 뜻의 것을 많이 이용했습니다.
How is it? Isn't it really elaborate? It doesn't seem to be out of trend at all. Such beautiful traditional fabric still survives in the modern day thanks to people who have passed down the manufacturing method over the years. Making thread with different materials, making the fabric from the thread, dyeing it with beautiful colors, and putting in the decorations seems like such a long process. Did you know that in the old days that the best wives were best weavers of fabric? Let's see how fabrics were made in Korea, China, and Japan.
The high quality of Chinese silk starts from the selection of good silkworms. Bad silkworms are taken out and the rest are put into boiling water to make the outer surface of the cocoon smooth, and then the thread is extracted. The thread is extracted like this to weave the silk. Then, dyes of different colors are used to make various decorative patterns. The silk is sold to places all over the world to be reborn as beautiful clothes for women. As most beginnings of dyes are, the traditional dyes of Japan also started from nature. Most fabrics were dyed using fruits, flowers, or roots of plants that could be easily obtainable in nature. The most important thing was spreading out the dye uniformly so that the same colors could be made each time. And if you add some natural brush strokes, the unique Japanese color and shapes are created. Japan, which actively took in the coloring culture of the West during the Edo dynasty, started to color their traditional costumes as well. This was how the diverse and elaborate kimonos of today were born. The process of making mochi, which is an even more expensive and precious fabric than silk, requires careful work for each and every strand of cloth. It takes over a week just to husk the raw hemp and to weave the fabric into clothes. The mochi that's made like this is a little too stiff, so it needs to be boiled several times to make it soft. Such fabric can be easily obtainable in markets, but the significance would be the making of the fabric with one's own hands, although it is complicated and tedious work. Every summer, Korean mothers would prepare new fabric for the family to wear next summer, even though it required lots and lots of hard work. When the fabric is dipped in hot water like this, it not only gets softer, but impurities are also washed off, making the fabric stronger. Now, let's dye some beautiful colors on the clothes. The Korean people, who favored natural colors, used natural dye obtained from plants. The Korean people, who love the color of deep blue, used the long oval-shaped summer grass called jokpul to dye fabrics into deep blue colors. They obtained the dye through traditional methods, and then the fabrics were dyed into natural colors using the dyes. The natural dye fabric completed like this gave off a simple and comfortable feeling. When the dye was washed off due to cleaning of the fabric, it was dyed again to look like a new set of clothes.
In order to build a nice house, you need good solid foundation. In order to have a delicious dish, you need the right ingredients. In order to make a beautiful dress, you need beautiful fabric. In the skies of the Orient, there are two stars called Gyeong-woo and Ching-nyo who blesses lovers on earth. Ching-nyo means a woman who weaves fabric. The Ching-nyo star sits in her loom, quietly weaving, and blesses the lovers. Why don't you look for her in the skies tonight? Again, I'm Sunmin Kim, and until next time, bye-bye.
China emphasizes on color the most. As the Yellow River symbolizes the Chinese continent, Chinese silk speaks for the Chinese people, showing off their elaborateness. The Japanese people know temperance, and their fabrics put grace and comfort first. The Korean people have lived by adjusting to the changes of 4 distinct seasons, so the natural textures and colors live in their fabrics, which give off a somewhat familiar feeling to us. As such, the traditional fabrics of the 3 BESETO countries began from nature and have developed by the harmony with nature. From refined climates came refined fabrics, and from rough environments came rough fabrics which were adjustable to nature. As such, different fabrics suitable to different environments have developed with our lives.